So we have an important update on concealed carry bans and the critical challenge that is now currently in front of the Supreme Court for consideration next week. So let's break down what is happening in this important case. Now, before we jump into this video, I want to thank one of the main supporters of this channel, which is First Form. You guys know that First Form is an amazing company. They're pro-freedom, pro-America. They support the Second Amendment, and their culture is unmatched. I love their products. I use their Formula 1 protein powder all the time. And one of the really cool things is if you guys use my links down below in the detail section, also in the pinned comment, if you order something $100 or more, you will get free shipping. And then also they do a money back guarantee if you don't enjoy those products. So if you want to support a pro-freedom company, pro-2A company, check them out using the links down below. Also, I want to mention that today is the last day to sign up for our legal course. It's something that I've made available to you guys. A lot of you got value out of the free legal guide that we did. Now we have a course that you can sign up for, but today is the last day that it's going to be open. It's going to close tonight at midnight. So if you're interested, check that out using the links down below. Today is the last day to sign up. And thank you to everybody that's already signed up for the course. So as I mentioned in the intro, in this video, I have an important update that everyone in states like New York, California, Hawaii, New Jersey, and others need to know about. And those states are currently facing a lot of attempts to essentially ban concealed carry. And this current case in front of the Supreme Court is critical for those challenges. The Hawaii Wolford versus Lopez case is currently seeking emergency Supreme Court intervention. This challenge revolves around a preliminary injunction and the Ninth Circuit finding that states' catch-all property bans are permissible under the Second Amendment. Now, recently, to the surprise of many, the Trump DOJ and AG Bondi decided to step up in support of this challenge. They filed an amicus brief to the Supreme Court, and they argued that it's finally time for the Supreme Court to review these carry ban issues and also address what has happened post-Bruen with all these states defying Bruen. This case is currently set for Supreme Court conference next week, and recently a supplemental brief was submitted to the Supreme Court showing how other circuit courts have ruled on these state carry bans, which further establishes that there's a circuit split and there is a need for the Supreme Court to step in right here and now. Now, if you don't understand what this case involves, essentially this is a case challenging Hawaii's new laws on concealed carry that they passed in direct response to Bruen. Because of this, plaintiffs along with 2A organizations sued the state of Hawaii to strike down this law, and on review, a district court issued a temporary restraining order, also known as a TRO, which was then later converted to a preliminary injunction. This case was then appealed to the Ninth Circuit, and on review, the Ninth Circuit upheld this catch-all property ban in the state of Hawaii, and they reversed the injunction that was issued by the lower court in favor of Mr. Wolford. The Ninth Circuit relied on older restrictions on hunting on private property to support this type of statewide concealed carry ban. They believed that there was a history and tradition to support this type of restriction. That has now led this case to seek emergency Supreme Court intervention. Now, this case has kind of a hard road to get Supreme Court review since it's still at a preliminary injunction stage. It's still at an interlocutory posture. And traditionally, Supreme Court does not like to review these types of cases at this posture. However, you now have the United States and the Trump DOJ supporting this challenge, and now it kind of has a better chance to get Supreme Court review. Now, the recent amicus brief submitted by the United States government states that the near-complete ban is flatly inconsistent with Bruen and the long history underlying it. Bruen recognized that an ordinary, law-abiding citizen has a general right to publicly carry arms for self-defense. They also pushed for the Supreme Court to review this case right here and now instead of punting it for further percolation and development down below at the lower court levels. They point out that Hawaii at the Ninth Circuit level argued that there was nothing else that the lower court needed to develop at trial and no further evidence was actually needed, so they cannot now argue at the Supreme Court level that they need to kick this and develop this more down below because they've already conceded and admitted at the Ninth Circuit level that none of that was needed. Hawaii responded to all of this as most anti-gun states do. They argued that this case is still too early for review, that there is no circuit split yet right now on these issues, and they really just want this kicked down below for further development and factual findings and evidence at the lower court level. However, what Hawaii is arguing is actually a direct contradiction of what they stated at the Ninth Circuit level. This was pointed out by the brief submitted by the Wolford plaintiff and then also the United States. Both sides point out that at the Ninth Circuit level, Hawaii said there was nothing else that needed to be developed at the lower court level. But now that this is now seeking Supreme Court review, the state of Hawaii wants to go back on that, backtrack and say, never mind, ignore what we said before, kick this down to the lower court because we need more evidence in an actual trial. They also tried to argue that there's no circuit split right now, and that's why this needs to go down below to the lower court. But recently, Wolford and his counsel submitted a supplemental brief identifying that all of that is wrong. Recently, they said that there was a decision out of the Third Circuit, that's the Coons case, which actually contradicts all of what they have been arguing at the Ninth Circuit level and actually contradicts what the Ninth Circuit ruled on in this case. This further establishes that there is a circuit split on this issue that needs to be resolved by the Supreme Court. And in this brief, they argue that the Third Circuit decision in Coons deepens the circuit split on the private property default rule addressed in question 1 of petitioner's petition for certiorari. Specifically, the Third Circuit reviewed a New Jersey law identical to Hawaii's law at issue in this case, finding that the New Jersey's default rule presumptively banning firearms on private property was not sufficiently rooted in the principles underlying this nation's history and tradition to pass constitutional muster. The court explained that historical examples were seemingly limited to private property that was not immediately held open to the public, such as plantations and estates. That ruling stands in direct conflict with the Ninth Circuit's decision below and is in accord with the Second Circuit's opinion in Antonyuk. Thus, the Third Circuit's opinion has deepened the circuit conflict identified in question 1 of this petition. Waiting for the decision of other appellate courts will not aid this court's ultimate decision-making regarding the constitutionality of this issue. Therefore, they argue that full percolation on this issue will be achieved by the time that the petitioner's case here will be granted review and reviewed by the Supreme Court if they are given review of this issue. So in essence, the Wolford plaintiff is pointing out that there are more decisions coming out of circuit courts on this very issue of concealed carry bans because a lot of these laws in different states are almost identical and they've been appealed already to various circuit courts, and circuit courts have ruled on these cases. And now there are multiple rulings even out of liberal circuit courts which actually contradict what the Ninth Circuit said and did here in this Hawaii case. There are now other circuit courts like the Third Circuit and the Second Circuit that said that catch-all property bans like this one in the state of Hawaii are not permissible, but then you have the Ninth Circuit say that, a state like Hawaii could have this catch-all property ban. So with the help of the Trump administration, the state of Hawaii might have actually got themselves caught in a little bit of a trap. A lot of the brief here by the state of Hawaii is focused on kicking the case for further development when they already conceded that none of that was needed. And also they state that there is no circuit split, but there are a ton of new circuit court cases and rulings that are coming out which actually split against what the Ninth Circuit said here in this Wolford case. You have 2 other circuit courts already dealing with similar state bans that said that these catch-all property bans are not permissible, but then you have the Ninth Circuit say that yes, a state can do this. So there's clearly a circuit split, and to wait for a full merits determination in this really isn't needed, and even Hawaii conceded that at the Ninth Circuit level. So now is the time for the Supreme Court to address these carry bans that have been put in place in direct defiance to Bruin. This case is now gaining a lot of momentum, and now it's set for conference next week on September 29th. So next week, the Supreme Court will consider whether they want to step in early on this issue and whether or not they're going to listen to what the plaintiffs argue and whether or not they're going to actually side with the Trump DOJ saying that, yes, now is the time to step in and review this carry ban issue. So we're going to keep our eyes on this next week, and then usually the following ordered list, we'll get an identification from the Supreme Court what they decided to do or if they're going to relist this. So we're going to wait to see how this plays out. But currently, that's what's going on in this critical concealed carry ban case that's currently pending in from the Supreme Court and set for conference next week. So as we get more information, I will let you guys know. If you want to support the channel, one of the best ways to do that, of course, is to subscribe to the channel. Also, like I mentioned, today is the last day to sign up for my legal course. If you want to sign up for that, today is the last day, and you can find it in the details section. It's going to be linked there, and then also in the pinned comment. So thank you guys so much for all of your support, but never forget this nation was built by armed scholars, and this nation will be maintained by armed scholars.